Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at DK Tiling Window Manager. DK is a tiling window manager, dynamic tiling window manager that I discovered just recently while I was poking about in the Arcolinux website there, looking at all their different desktops. And DK is one that I hadn't really noticed before. It never really got on my radar. And so I thought, wow, this kind of looks interesting, and I took a look and it looks really interesting to me. So I want to showcase that today. And currently I'm out here at the SourceForge website, and this particular website has the Arcolinux B edition. And recently Arcolinux has switched over to Arconet. And so Arconet is kind of a catch-all for all the different desktops. You can go in there and you can choose from all the different desktops all on one ISO, which is kind of cool. Although I do like the B editions because I can see the live desktops right from each individual ISO. So if I wanted to look at DK live, I could just download this ISO and then see it in a live install. Whereas the Arconet, I believe, is XFCE by default. So it is a little bit of a trade-off, but the Arconet is kind of nice. And I think I'm going to download that and then just do an install from there. Now I use Arcolinux all the time anyway, so I can actually just install the DK desktop using Arch Linux Tweak Tool. Or if you're just on Arch in general, you can download the Arch Linux Tweak Tool, which works really great, and you can install the desktop that way as well. I just clicked on the link that takes you over to the Arconet SourceForge page here. And so Arconet is the one that I would use just to install different desktops and so forth. I think the Pro version is more related to servers and so forth. So I'm going to download this ISO and load it into a VM. And we'll do a quick sample install. And also in the terminal here, if you just want to install the tweak tool, you can go in here and do a yay-s and then Arch Linux -tweak-tool-get. And then when you hit enter, it'll tell you nothing's found. Why? Oh, because I have a bunch of tildes in front. Okay, let's take out the tildes and do it again. And this will download the Arch Linux Tweak Tool from Git and just authenticate here. And this Tweak Tool is really great. This was developed, I believe, by Eric Dubois. It comes stock with all the Arcolinux distros here. So here we can go in our Tweak Tool and under Desktop, just select the DK desktop there from the list, and then it'll start installing and you'll be good to go. It's as simple as that if you're on Arch. And if you're not on Arch and you want to go ahead and download the Arcolinux or the Arconet ISO, either one, the ISO B or the Arconet, the Bs are no longer supported as far as I know. So the dates that you see on there right now for the B ISOs, which most of them are somewhere in April and March of 2024, I believe those are no longer going to be updated. Mr. Dubois is switching permanently over to Arconet. Apparently. So here I am, I'm in my boot up here, and this is the live Arconet ISO. So I'm assuming it's gonna boot right into here, which is a desktop known as XFCE. And I'm pretty sure that's the XFCE desktop. It looks like it. And there's our welcome screen. That's cool. And then we got our toolbar on top, and there's our whisker menu. I recognize that right off the bat. So this is definitely the XFCE environment here by default, which is nice. And here we got our choices, easy and advanced. If you do the easy install, then you're going to end up with XFCE. But if you want to choose a different desktop, then we'll go with the advanced installation online. So I'm going to hit that install. And what we're going to do is we're just going to skip over all the extra options there, because what this will do is when we choose our desktop, it's going to give us a default install for that desktop. And so really all the other steps in here, you don't have to be so confused by it, like the kernel. By default, I think you get the Zen kernel with the DK desktop. And then all the communication and development, those are all optional. You can really just skip over all these things here. Even the login manager, it'll install it for you. But if you want to specify something, then feel free to choose. Here's all our desktops, and I'm going to choose the desktop DK here and hit next. And then we have our Hyperlink and Wayland base, but all these other things, fonts and all that stuff is going to have a default install. So you only really need to check boxes here if you want to add something specific along the way. Like maybe you want to install Dolphin instead of Thunar. Thunar is a default. Or maybe add in Inkscape or whatever. So you can do that. Otherwise, just skip ahead and going to go with the default. And then here, just going to let it erase the disk and cover everything. And I'm just going to select swap to file just for the heck of it. You can leave it the way it is if you wish. And then I'm going to give myself a username and a password with a lame password. And then use the same password for the administrator account. Looks good. So I'm going to hit next. And I'm happy with that layout there. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit install. And then install now to double confirm. So I'm going to let it do its thing. This shouldn't take too long. And I'll be right back when it's done. Wow, it's done. That wasn't too long. So I'm going to hit it, restart. I'm going to uncheck restart. And then I'm just going to shut this down and remove the ISO. And then we'll see if it worked. Okay, I'm back and it looks like we got a menu here, so far so good on the install. Hopefully I won't look like an idiot. Well, I always look like an idiot, but hopefully that will have default set of software on here after I skipped all those steps. And I'm quite sure it will. And looks good. Yeah, there's our conky and we got, looks like Polybar up there. And a message on upgraded scripts. Very good. And so here we have our welcome screen. And then it looks like we got some apps up there in the toolbar. And then our clock and sys tray. And over here, we got our D menu. And so that's a nice shortcut to it. And I really like the theming that Eric Dubois does here in Arcolinux for that menu. That's really cool. And then, of course, we got all our workspaces. And by default, there's 10 up there. Nice. I'm going to hit this install software button here and then just kind of authenticate. And see what we got. That looks like Sofirem. Nice. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but yeah. Nice. Okay, so Sofirem looks like the software package manager here, the GUI, and very nice. So we can choose different pre-installed applications here, or we could just search for something instead of going through the list. But here you can see all kinds of predefined items here per category. These are our dev softwares. A lot of them were recommended during the install. In fact, a lot of these kind of mirror what we saw during the install that we just kind of skipped over. So this is kind of a way to go back over it again if you just want to look at it again and say, okay, now I'll take Inkscape or GIMP. And so you can select them all in here. Personally, I just like using the console to do this, but this is kind of a nice looking little package manager. It's kind of cool. Here we got our multimedia stuff here. And we got our Office suite. And we have some events there for our PDF files and so forth. But we can also choose from Office suites like LibreOffice and WPS Office, which is a nice suite, only Office as well. And then here we can add in some extra theming along with icons and cursors and all that good stuff. So these are some additional icons you can choose from that are available right through the toggles. And then we got our cursors, and by default we're using this Bibata cursor. I think that's what it's called, Bibata. I don't know. Bibata Bing. So yeah, very nice. So you can add some extra cursors in there like Cursor Breeze, and that's the new KDE 6 version of the cursor themes, I think. Here we got picom, and you can see we got some other, we got the picom Jonaberg, and the other one there, I forgot what it was, but we're going to have to, I'm going to actually add that because see, you can see the transparency there, but there's no blur. And I'd like to have a blur in the background on transparent windows like the console. And here we got this IBGWAM. I don't know how you pronounce that, but it says we can't install it because picom's already installed, there's a conflict. So that would require some manual intervention, like we could use the console to do it. And then there's the Jonaberg, which I think might be a little newer, but I believe they both work just as well. I'm just going to go in here and do a sudo pacman-syyy and just sync up the repos here real quick, since this is the first time I've run this. And then let's do a yay picom and just see what our choices are here. So yeah, there's the regular picom, there's picom git, and then the ibhagwan or whatever you call that, and then the Jonaberg. I guess I'll go with the ibhagwan there, although the Jonaberg is a lot easier to pronounce. And so now it's saying that they're in conflict. You do want to do this, and yes, so now it's going to remove picom, and then it'll install the modified version, which allows you to use the blurring effects and even round your corners if you want. So now I'm going to vim the config file, which is located in .config/dk/picom.conf, which is the conf file for picom. That's where it's being directed in the startup. And so if we scroll down here in this config file, we should find a section here related to blurring. And so I'm going to just scroll down, and it's somewhere in here. There's fading, opacity, and those are our opacity settings if you want to tweak that. But if we go farther, there it is, background blurring. Nice. So if we go in the background blurring here, we can turn on these blurring things, like our blur method. It uses the dual kaways. I don't know if I pronounced that right either. But let's uncomment the blur method, and then in quotes, we want to type in blur. No, it's dual. Dual, K-W, I think A-S-E. I think that's right. And then we'll close the quote on that. And I don't know if I spelled that right. Let's see if that software thingy is still open here. I'm going to click there and take a look, and yeah, dual, K-A-W-A-S-E. Yes. So I spelled it right, or quasi maybe. And then we'll uncomment our blur size and make that, I'm assuming, is like maybe 12 pixels. I'm not sure, but let's undo that. And then we'll just kind of remove those spaces there. And let's see, what else do we want to do here? Our blur deviation, I'm just going to make that true. And I'm not really sure exactly what that does, but I just uncommented it anyway. Now our blur background, we can uncomment this and actually set it to true. And there's another option too called blur background fixed. And I think that might actually maybe be a little more. It says up here that this could be bad in performance, blur background. So the fixed option might be actually a little better if you're a little tight on resources. And so you can keep that in mind and use the fixed instead. And I think you might use a little less. And then down here for backend, we got xrender by default, but I believe that's kind of incompatible with the blur. So what we want to do is use the GLX. So I'm going to comment that out. And the xrender GLX hybrid might work too, but I know the GLX does. So I'm just going to kind of go with that. And then I'm just going to do a write here to write to the file. And then there it is. The blur just came right in. So now we have blur in our background, and that makes the transparent windows look a lot better, because the terminal can be really hard to read when you got transparency without a blur. It just kind of blends in with the background there and gets too busy. So, okay, I had to restart there. It locked up on me when I changed the the rendering, or I mean the Pycon adjustment there. So yeah, you might have to reboot, and that was kind of a hard reboot. So yeah, but it did save our settings. I'm glad to see that. So now we got our blur. Nice. So you might want to keep that in mind with the picom there. If you restart the picom by saving that config file, you might lock up. That's all right. Not a big deal. We came out of it. So I went into my .config/dk file, and that's our picom comp that we were in. So that's where it's located. And then we got our dkrc file, our Polybar folder, which pertains to our Polybar. And then sxhkd, which is our keyboard bindings. And so we already have an RC file in here generated, which is nice. So it's using sxhkd to handle our key bindings, which is nice. And if we go in here, we can see we got our config file kind of already configured with defaults, and Arcolinux is pretty uniform with all their different key bindings, which is nice. So a lot of times I don't have to tweak too much. There's a few key bindings that I change in here just to adjust to my own taste. However, their defaults are really good, and I like most of them just the way they are. This was a Super F3, and that opened up Inkscape, and it seems that Inkscape is installed. I think I installed it when I opened up Sofirem there, so nice. I didn't even bother to look after I did that in the menu, but yes, it's installed, so that's good to see. And the keyboard shortcut worked just fine, and we got the latest and greatest, of course, which is 1.32, which I would expect to be on Arch. So anyway, anything you want to do key binding wise, we can do there. We also got this change background, which is kind of cool. When you click on that, then it randomly selects a wallpaper. Wow! That was like in your face. Kind of cool though. And then we got this cool mountain scene there. The doggy DJ. Nice. And then back to the lava swirl with lightning or something. Wow, that's cool too. I like that. Nice. Looks like the evil emperor from Star Wars. And there it came up again. I guess it's random, so randomly, I suppose it's possible you can choose the same thing more than once. And then back to another nice drawing. And that's cool too. I like that. Wow. Great color scheming in there with that. The classic monitors retro pick. So that's sxhkd RC. Wow. Yeah, that's a tongue twister. So if we go scrolling down this a bit, we can modify any of these or add to it. When you install apps, you can go in here and add keyboard shortcuts. Browser, I like to be Super plus B, and then I'm going to change that to Firefox. So that way, if anytime I want to launch Firefox, I can just hit Super B, and then that'll launch Firefox. B for browser. So now if I do that, actually, if you want to save and reload the sxhkd file, what you would do is hit Super Shift S as in Sam or Sierra. And it did launch, but now I'd kind of like my browser to launch in a different window. So I just moved over my text editor to Workspace 3 because I'd like my browser to open up in Workspace 2. So how do we do that? Well, that's what we're going to do with window rules. So I'm going to edit our dkrc file here. And here you can see more settings. And if we scroll down, we got our different workspaces out here and our names designated, which are designated as numbers. And that's just the way I like it. And then if we go down, we got our global settings. And then a little bit farther, we got our window rules. And they have a whole bunch in here that are already predefined and commented out. And the commenting is great on these. They tell you exactly what they're for. And I really like that. There's no mystery. And here's a couple that pertain to Firefox. And this one is just what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to uncomment the rule there for that. And we already got Firefox defined here. So if I save this, and you can just hit Control S for save, or do it in the file menu. Now if I reload it, Super Shift S, and then launch Firefox, Super B, it still opened in the same workspace. Interesting. Okay, I forgot to refresh it. Let's do it again. Super Shift S. There we go. And it opened in 1. I was thinking it was going to open in 2. I must have forgot to change the number on the workspace. Oh well. Not a big deal. I'll just jump back here and here. And yeah, I did. I left it at 1. What a putz. So I'm going to change that to 2. But at least we know it's working because it went to a different workspace. So now Super Shift S to reload, and then let's just close that guy there. So Super B. And it opened right up in Workspace 2. So that's perfect. Lovely. And so you can do that with any applications that you want to open in specific workspaces. And also at the end, you'll notice you got focus equals true. So what that means is that you will follow the application over to the workspace that it opened up in. If you don't want to follow the application, then just change focus to false, and that'll change that. So I'm going to copy this and just paste it in again and stick in another app. And you can do this to as many apps as you want. So I'm just going to change Firefox to Inkscape. And then I think I'll have it open up in Workspace 4 maybe. And again, I'm just going to let it follow over to Workspace 4 when it opens up Inkscape, because I prefer to follow most of my apps in the workspace that they open rather than having to go there manually afterwards. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, I like to follow my apps over. And DK, it seems like, makes it really easy to do that. So I am just loving this, and it's very intuitive for me, the config files. It's not a problem at all. Not even a learning curve there, barely. So now if I hit Inkscape, it opened up in 4. Perfect. So that worked. So those are window rules. So that kind of makes life a little bit easier there. I'm just going to close that. And let's pop back over into our dkrc file. And of course, opening up in Workspace isn't the only thing. Here we got like a floating window rule here. And what this will do is if you use the open file dialog in Google Chrome, then it'll set it to a specific size. And float has to be equal to true for this, because this particular rule only works with a floating window. Otherwise, what's the purpose of having the specific width and height, right? And I like that Google Chrome is there with a rule set too, because sometimes when you use something like xprop on Google Chrome, unless you're logged into Google Chrome, it might not show you the WM class. Just a little FYI. So then I kind of scroll up here a little and see if there's anything I missed. This is another thing here where you can enable static workspaces and assign them to monitors. And it's only relevant for multiple monitors. Apparently they got a lot of requests for that, but I think the DK team feels that you would probably like the original config the best. Me personally, I do, but you know, everyone's different there. So it's nice that they accommodate. There's a lot of projects out there, not a lot, but some projects don't want to accommodate for people. So that's nice. And then our 10 is our default number of workspaces there, which we see up above. And that's where you can change it under the initialize 10 workspaces comment. And then we got our different layout assignments there with gaps and so forth. So you can adjust all that right here. Nice. And then, of course, we got our auto start. And the auto start's a good thing to look at, too, because if we go in here, we can look at our xrender settings. And none of them are actually uncommented by default. But if you have different monitor setups, you can do that here. And then we got our background. So by default, it's selecting a background from this location and your user share backgrounds. And it's also loading variety at the same time. So after it loads that background, it'll run variety and load something else, I guess. Personally, I don't like having them both run, so I would probably just comment out variety. Personally, I don't use it that much, but it is a pretty nice wallpaper app. Personally, I usually comment it out, but we can leave it uncommented. That's okay too. And then, of course, our volume icons and other things in here. And then we can also activate anything we want to add in, like nitrogen, Vivaldi. Maybe you want Firefox to start up right from the get-go. So that's where you can do it right there. And then we got our apps that are pinned up here, like that looks like Telegram and Discord maybe. And then that is what? A Mint image writer. Okay. That's kind of cool. And then we got our Polybar settings. Polybar. We got our Polybar settings here. So I'm going to open that up here again in Sublime Text Editor. And so these are our settings for our Polybar up above. And I think I'd like to tweak some stuff in here in the Polybar. Here we got our background colors and foreground colors, which are designated by variables that are declared up here under the colors area section, I guess you'd call it. And so those are the colors, the hex designation, and then those last two digits there are for your opacity. 00 being fully opaque, I believe. Or it could be the other way around. I forgot. I guess it's the other way around. And then we got, over here on modules right, we got these corresponding here, our date, break, which is a separator, and then our power menu, and then another separator, and then tray. And the separators are referred to as breaks, so that's cool. There's our Rofi menu, our change background, which I think is cool, another break. And then we got our Firefox, Discord, Telegram, and Mint Stick. So those all correspond right there. Now, I think I'm just going to remove Discord and Telegram there, just so you can kind of see it in action. But instead of just deleting them, I'm going to copy this whole line. And the reason I do that, I'm going to paste it below, is because I want to have the original line there just for reference in case I ever want to put it back to its original state for some reason, or refer back to something that was changed. So we'll have that commented out. And then under the new line, I'll delete these Telegram and Discord. There we go. And now if I hit save, you can see that it instantly updated. So that's good to see. I'm glad it does that. Nice. I didn't even have to refresh it. If you do got to refresh the Polybar though, you can just hit Super Shift R and that will reload the Polybar. And now we got our clock here. And when you click on it, it changes the style of the date and so forth. I think I'd kind of like to have a calendar pop up there. So I'm going to adjust that. Also, another thing I'd like to have up there is a weather app. And I just did a search for weather and it does have the module in here. So that's cool. I'm glad to see that. So that means I can go back up to the top here where we were. And I think I'll put it in our right panel, our right hand bar. And where is it? There it is. So right next to date, I think I'll have weather first. It showed up, but there's a bad HTTP status. That must be one of those weather apps that use an API, I guess. So here's the location of it. It's in config/polybar scripts. So apparently it has a Polybar folder right in the config root folder. That's cool. So if I back out into config and go into Polybar, and we go into scripts, there's the weather.py. So that's our Python file. So if I open that up as well, along with all these other ones, we can see our different variables in here. And city is assigned. We got to give it a city designation to change that. And then our API key we'll probably have to add. So up here, it shows us the address. I'm just going to copy this part of it, the openweathermap.org/city. And then I'll just open up Firefox and then paste that in. And it asks if you want to detect your location, and I'm okay with that. Yes, I'll tell you where I'm at. And then let's choose a city here, other than the old London choice there. We can go up here in the search bar, and then I'll just type in something like maybe Niceville in Florida. It's such a nice name. You gotta be nice to live in Niceville. Cool. So there it is. It's showing Niceville, US. I'm going to hit that. And it's a balmy, hot 29 degrees. Wow. So now I can take these numbers here from the last part of that URL, and I'm just going to paste it here in the city. And then that'll default it to Niceville. And then let's hit save again. Control S and see if that helped. And it didn't. I think the default was like Antwerp or something. But yeah, apparently I'm going to have to change the API key too. And that's really actually pretty easy. It's free. You just have to register on the website there, which is a mild pain in the butt, but nothing serious. Just click on the API link and then just select any one of these random things. And this will take you to another page. And when you scroll down, you'll see there's a free option here. And just select Get API Key. And then it'll bug you to get a username and an email and password and all that, and let them know you're over 16. And then after all that, then we can just hit our API keys and then copy and paste it in. And then I think that'll probably fix everything. The other thing you want to do is, if you want to use Fahrenheit, change your units to imperial and then uncomment the F key there for the unit key. And that'll change it to Fahrenheit, and now refresh, and it works. Now we can see Fahrenheit, 83 degrees. Wow, that sounds even hotter than 29. So we got clear skies there in Niceville. 83 degrees, and that worked beautifully. So now we got a weather widget here. That's nice. I'm almost happy with the Polybar. I'll be happier if I can get a calendar going on here. Also, I'm not really quite happy with the weather. So before I jump ahead to the calendar, I want to click left on this and get some kind of pop-up happening. So I'm going to copy that click left command here and apply it to my weather. And then I'm going to use YAD. YAD is installed by default here. And so I'm going to use wttr.in. So I'm going to call HTML and then set the URI to HTTPS wttr.in/Niceville. We're going to just specify the name here. And then our YAD window is going to have some properties to it. So I'm going to have it centered, and then double hyphen fixed, so it's in one spot, and then double hyphen width, and I'm going to make that maybe 1,000 pixels, and then let's do double hyphen height, and for the height, let's do 680 maybe. And now we'll do double hyphen, and I want to specify the timeout. So after so many seconds, it'll close automatically, and let's make that 60 seconds. So that's 60 there. And now I want to put timeout buttons over. So that's indicated by timeout indicator. And I'm going to put equals right. And that'll put the buttons over on the right side. So now if I click that, it worked. Wahoo! Right the first time. Wow. So there we go. So that's our window that gives us more information using WTTRIN. And actually, if you wanted to, if you like puttering around with scripting, you could actually make the indicator in the Polybar a WTTR reference as well. But I think it's kind of cool with the hybrid here. You kind of got this cool graphic there and WTTR when you click on it. So yeah, now let's give this a calendar. That's too boring just having that. I want a calendar. So there's a solution. I think it's called pop-up calendar. So I'm just going to type that in there in the search thing there. And that really wasn't specific enough. So let me be a little more specific. Pop-up calendar get Polybar. There we go. Yes. So this is a really nice script here called pop-up calendar. And I really like this script. And so if you go in here, then you can see the dependencies are YAD and XDO tool. I know I have YAD, but I don't think I have XDO tool. I'll have to check. So I'm just going to go in here and do yay XDO tool and just see if it shows if it's installed here. And it's not installed. So that's their number one choice here, XDO tool. So I'm going to press 1, hit enter, authenticate. And then I'm going to just hit enter for yes. And just like that, XDO tool is installed. So we got our dependencies out of the way. And now here we got change these values if you want. So there you can change your border sizes and so forth, your format for your time and everything. I think the default's pretty good though, but I'll keep that in mind. Here's our module code here that we want to paste in our ini file for our Polybar. So I'm just going to hit this little copy symbol here, and that'll copy all that code to the clipboard. Nice. And some window managers, you might want to enable floating too. I don't know if I have to do that here in DK. We'll find out. But I need the pop-up calendar.sh file as well. So before I copy that module code, I'm just going to go into that script there and kind of make that file, because I'm not seeing, yeah, I'd have to download the whole thing, but it's easier just to go in here and just do a raw copy right there. And then that'll copy all the code from popup calendar.sh. And then under Polybar scripts here, I'm just going to right click and create a document. Just do it the old GUI way. And then we need to give it the same name, popup-calendar.sh. Well, it's easier if we give it the same name. And then I'm going to right click, go to properties and make it executable. Permissions, allow this to run as a program. That's the GUI way to do it. And then we'll do .config/ I think that's in Polybar / scripts / popup-calendar.sh. And it didn't do any. Oh, I forgot to vim it. I want to call vim. There we go. So now I'm just going to paste all that info into my empty file that I created so it can actually do something. There we go. We'll paste that, and then I'll just hit escape and then :WQ to write it and quit. And now we should have ourselves a working popup-calendar.sh file. Nice. Now we just got a call to it here in our polybar config.ini file, which is located in .config / polybar / config.ini. So let's go down here and copy this module code by clicking that little icon, and it shows that it copied. So now I'm just going to stick it anywhere in here. I guess I might as well just put it under the weather module, paste it in. Then I'm going to copy this long series of hashtags there and stick it down here just to make it look neater. Excellent. And then right there. So now we got our pop-up calendar reference right here. And when we right click on it, it should load it. But now we got to go back up here and under modules right, I'm going to take out date and substitute it with popup-calendar. And then it should show us a different looking clock. What? Polybar-scripts. Oh, okay, I forgot to change the path. That's not the right path. So back down here under the modules, I need to change this path to where it really is, which is our home folder /.config / polybar / scripts / popup. There we go. And I also need to copy that here. So let me just paste that in up there too, because that's our executable path. So we need an executable and a left click. So now if I click on it, there it is. And it looks gorgeous. When you move your mouse away, then it disappears. Beautiful. So that is working perfect. I'm going to change the background though. I don't really want that green background with the red lettering. And also I want to change my interval to 1. You want to have it on 1, especially if you want to use seconds, because it'll update every X number of seconds, and 5 means it'll only update every 5 seconds. So like if I went up here and I did added in the format :%s, that'll display the seconds. And this is the popup-calendar.sh file that I just modified. And there you go. Now we have seconds. And of course, if you don't want seconds, then don't put it in there. All right. So cool. Let's do something about that background and the font color there. So I'm just going to copy the format background and foreground code from this other module. And I'm just going to paste it in here, and that should make it uniform. So hit Control-S to save. And there we go. Now it looks civilized. And when we click on it, the calendar still works, and you can scroll through the months. The pop-up calendar is really nice. I really like that. And it's a favorite of mine when it comes to Polybar scripts. So yes, that's looking better. We got ourselves weather. We got ourselves a calendar. Wahoo! What else can we do? Let's adjust the sound. I'm back in my sxhkd file. And if you notice, if I hit my up and down volume keys on my keyboard, it's incrementing by 10. And those increments are way too big for my taste. So in this file, there's a reference in your keyboard settings that pertain to your volume keys. The slider's okay though. If I roll my mouse wheel, that's acceptable. I think that's okay. But it's the keys that are just way too out of control. So I'm going to come down here to my multimedia keys section here in my sxhkd sxhkd file. And you can see they're at 10% by default for your raise and lower volume. So I'm going to make that, I think, maybe around 2%. You could even do 1 if you want to really fine tune it. But for me, 2 is kind of comfortable. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to just hit Control S and then Super Shift S to refresh the keyboard bindings. Now, if I hit my up and down volume keys, you can see they're incrementing by 2s instead of by 10 like it was before. So that's way better. So I think that was kind of the other tweak I wanted to do with the config file there for that. So that takes care of the volume. Excellent. And there's my Inkscape I left open, so I'm just going to close that, tidy it up a bit. And over here on 1, I got my blur still happening. That's really nice. And there's my terminal and Thunar file manager. And then, of course, my Sublime text editor, which is the default text editor. And let's change our background some more. And that's a cool background, tons of color. But as you'll notice, up here, my Polybar is still clear. And so it kind of makes the letters hard to see. And I'd really like to have blur on that too. So I'm going to go back into my dkrc, or no, wait a minute. I want to go into I want to go back into picom because we really want to blur that bar. So let me go into that picom.config/dk, picom.conf. And let's blur that bar because when you get a bright wallpaper like this, then it kind of washes out the lettering and makes it harder to see. And I think the blur will make that a lot nicer instead of just like backing off the transparency. Here you can see under blur settings, we got blur background exclude. That's hard to say. And so we got window type equals dock and for desktop. So if we comment out the dock part of it, that should fix it. And there we go. Excellent. So I hit Control S to save it. And now we got blurring on the bar. Excellent. That looks a lot better. So yeah, I probably wouldn't use that wallpaper if it didn't have that blur effect because it would just blend in. Either that or I would change the font color to black or something. Or yellow or whatever. Not yellow. Some color. So excellent. I like it. So that's how you solve that issue if you want to add some blur to other areas. And then, of course, on your Conky, if you want the Conky and other desktop items to have a blur, then you would just comment out the other thing that was on there, the desktop. And then here, usually I have list view as my default here in Thunar. And then I like to have these columns closer together. But if I relaunch this, they'll be wide apart again. So to fix that, just go to View and then Configure Columns and uncheck this box here that says Automatically Expand Columns as needed. And that'll fix that. And now they'll stay there. And then you can also turn on your image preview. And then when you click on an image, it'll show up down here in the preview area, side pane. And so that's a nice thing to have checked too. I like checking that as well. So, yeah, now we got it. We got our blur happening. We got our blur on the Polybar. That's cool. And what did I do? Oh, there we go. Oh, I hit full screen. Okay. Yeah, if you hit Super F as in Foxtrot, then it'll toggle between floating or full screen and not full screen. So there you go. Excellent. And I think I covered everything. I can't think of anything else I forgot. So I am really liking this. I'm telling you, DK, I think I might just run this for a while on my main machine and just daily drive it because this looks super intuitive. It's really, really snappy feeling, and it just looks like an overall great desktop. The other tiling window managers I'm running on my desktop are Hyperland and XFCE, which is not a tiling window manager, but I got it set up that way, just like in one of my previous videos. But when I came across DK, I was pretty excited about this. And I don't always use Hyperland. The reason I have XFCE on here also at the same time is because in Hyperland, if I go into, there seems to be an issue in Hyperland right now where if I go into my Vert Manager and I go full screen, I can't get out. The little drop down tab when you go to mouse up to the top of your screen doesn't come down, so you get trapped inside the VM, and the only way out is to hard boot your machine. Do a hard reset, or you can control Alt F5 or something, go into another terminal session, and through the console you can just do a reboot. That's typically what I do. And so it's technically not a hard reboot, but it's a pain in the butt. So that's why I have XFCE on here. DK is an Xorg, so I don't have those Wayland issues. Although with that said, I tested it out in, I think it was Wayfire, and I did not have that issue with Vert Manager. I was able to get right out of it. So, and there's our drop-down menu. It doesn't work in Hyperland. So that worked. So I think it's a Hyperland thing and not a Wayland thing. But back on track. DK is something I am definitely going to daily drive. Like I said before, I really like this. It feels intuitive. It looks great. It's snappy. I can't think of anything I don't like about it, really. And it's very easy to configure. And I didn't have to go Googling all over the internet just to figure out how to move something to another workspace or to have it open up in a specific workspace. And the documentation, the man pages on there, I went through that a little bit before I went live, and it looks like it's extremely well documented, and I love the way it's commented in the default files. I don't know if that's Eric's Dubois doing or if that's a DK thing, but whatever it is, it's commented very nicely. I am super happy with it, and if you're itching to just poke around in a new tiling window manager just to see if you want to move into something different, a change of scenery, give it a try. I highly recommend it. From me, it gets a 2 thumbs up. Double thumbs. I love it. And I hope this review was helpful, and if it was, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. And hit subscribe. You know you want to. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.